Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. Welcome to the first season episode of Women's Conversations Around Tough Topics. Did you know that greater than 50% of women leave the tech industry by the age of 35? That's a staggering statistic. And today we're going to talk about that and why women are leaving the tech industry, and how my two guests that we have on the show are bringing together women in a retreat to help support them and give them the tools that they need as women to continue on their path in industry, or maybe leaving the industry. So the first guest that we're going to have today is Mariah Brown. And Mariah is a health coach. She's a Yale and functional medicine trained nurse practitioner, CNM. We don't want to put all these acronyms because people won't understand that. Her undergraduate degree is in marketing. She's helped women feel turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. Her work online brings her 23 years of experience supporting women in one place to co-create deep transformation, energy, and passion. And she's going to go deeper on her background. The other guest that we have today is Josie Hayes. She's a distinguished leader and executive in the technology industry with over 2 decades of experience in notable Silicon Valley companies like Apple, Zynga, and Tile. She's been recognized for her passion and advocacy for women in tech, and she's transitioned her extensive industry experience into a focused career as an executive and leadership coach. So today, this is going to be just a dialogue around these topics that are really impacting women and causing them to leave the tech industry, or just women in general that need executive coaching support. And I invite you as an audience to bring your questions. We'll bring on your questions, we'll answer them. But these two professionals are going to talk to you and hopefully get you unstuck. If there's anything that you have that's keeping you in a place where you need help with, reach out online or after. We'll make sure to get into the questions later. All right. So, Mariah.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Yes, welcome as I trip through. I haven't been online for 12 months. So we don't mind. We're here to bring our message, and the message will land on somebody. As you guys come on live, please make sure to introduce yourself, and we'll make sure to answer your questions. So, Mariah, since you're on my top right here, why don't you go ahead and start and talk a little bit about yourself, what brought you into your field, how you help women, what the outcomes of working with you look like, and then Josie will go over you.
Yeah, I would love to. And thank you, Kathryn, for having us. It was so lovely. We had some time together in Sedona, and then we were talking about coming into Women's History Month and this need to go, how do we bring light to this? And so a little bit around my background, I started in marketing, which is just kind of like that's fascinating. And then had one of those life events where I was like, I'm actually a midwife. And I ended up going to Yale for my nurse practitioner training and finished there in 2007. So since then, I've run the women's health in lots of places, federally funded clinics, private practices, international health endeavors in Ghana and Haiti and Nicaragua, and it's been spectacular. Along the journey, I was introduced to the Institute of Functional Medicine and a more holistic approach to wellness. And then in 2019, I launched 100% online. And I'm so grateful that I did. So how do I support my clients? Most of my clients are all women. I do work with some men, but it's predominantly women. And it's the woman who is generally like age 35 to 60. She's ambitious. She will not go belly up to status quo. And she says things like, I'm tired. I don't recognize myself in the mirror. I'm not sleeping. I'm putting on weight. I'm struggling with brain fog, gassy, bloating. Could it be my hormones? Like, what's going on? And they've gone to their providers and often been dismissed. Either been told, here's a prescription, and they're saying, that's not what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. Or maybe HRT, but I want more than that. Or they're told it's just part of aging. And they say, no. I'm not okay feeling this way. I want to believe that I can continue to feel absolutely vibrant. And so then I have the opportunity to support these clients, these women, with a team of master coaches. So it's a very multidisciplinary approach so that they can actually feel completely spectacular and pour that into the careers that they're building, the leadership roles that they're playing, and the legacy that they're creating in the world, when the best way I can describe it is the lights turn on again. And you mentioned at the beginning of my bio, I say that I help women feel turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. There is a kind of piece around this that relates to our sensuality, our sexuality, our passion. And, I don't think that we can separate out our nutrition, our supplementation, our mindset, our trauma release, or
It's all together, right?
yes,
It's
yes,
yeah, for those people who like to segment those things, right? Like, uh, for sure,
yep,
100%.
yep. So we get to come alive.
Yes. Josie, tell us a little bit about what brought you to want to support women, and then in your specific niche, women in tech.
Yeah, so
And I'm going to take myself off screen for a minute to make sure that we're okay technically. So you keep going. I'm here watching.
all right, sounds good. So yeah, it's great to be here. So my career is I've been in the tech industry for almost 25 years now. My corporate roles were working on large scale consumer technologies. As Kathryn mentioned, I worked at Apple, Tile, Zynga, American Express. My teams ended up building products that have been used by billions of people throughout the years. And my passion for working with women was, tech is a very male dominated industry. And I've seen the challenges women face in the industry, including myself. In 2018, when I left Apple, I actually almost left tech entirely. I was tired, I was burnt out, I was going through imposter syndrome. I thought I was a bad manager, despite the fact people telling me I was the best manager they'd ever had. And I gave myself a break. I gave myself 6 months off. I really focused on me for one of the first times in my career. At that point, I'd been doing this for almost 19 years, and I'd never really taken more than a week off. And I realized a few things. One is I love tech. I've been playing with computers since I was 5 years old, and I got a Commodore 64. And I also have seen that since I had started in this industry, that technology was impacting our daily lives so much more, but yet it wasn't addressing the needs of women and other underrepresented minorities. So I said, I'm going to come back to tech under my rules this time. And so when I went to join Tile in late 2018, I spoke to the CEO and I said, I not only want to be your platform engineering director, but I also want to lead your diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. I want to start a mentoring program. And I don't want inclusion to be just lip service. And he surprised me. And he said, Josie, I promised my wife and daughters I was going to make Tile the best place for women to work in the Valley. And so I loved that, and I joined, and we delivered on that promise. Built a truly inclusive culture that still to this day, I have former colleagues reach out and say, Josie, that was such an amazing culture that we created. In the middle of COVID, I got my boss promoted to CTO, and I crafted my VP of engineering role. And we scaled the engineering team from 29 to 55 in 4.5 months in the middle of COVID, while keeping our inclusive culture. And I realized I didn't want to just be having this impact at one company. I wanted to be changing tech. And so that's what really inspired me in July of 2022 to leave the corporate world and start my own coaching business. So my focus is really on coaching women leaders in tech to thrive and create, the careers that really help bring them fulfillment and light them up. And also looking at it from the personal side too, which is why, partnering with Mariah on this upcoming retreat we're on is I think is so powerful, right? Because as we were saying earlier, it is holistic, right? If you don't have your health, you're not going to be thriving in your leadership. And if you don't have clarity around what you want in your career, you're going to feel unfulfilled in your personal life potentially too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's amazing. So there's a bunch of things I want to break down that we just talked about as you were introducing yourself. Let's first just touch on the retreat that's coming up.
Mhm.
So there's all different types of containers, right, where we can come together in community. And yay, I was worried that we weren't streaming on LinkedIn. So shout out to, is it Maduri?
Mhm.
Shout out to Maduri. Thank you for letting us know. So women, and now I'm so happy we have just women on here, right? In my experience as being a woman, we love community, right? We love community. We love sharing, and it's just been a historical thing. You know, we sitting around the dinner table shucking peas, or picking cotton or hoeing cotton, which is what I did in high school, by the way, which is why I chose those things. And it's community. It's telling stories. It's being together. And so, what made you want to do the retreat versus a virtual kind of interaction?
Can I start that one, Josie? So I have been running women's circles and women's retreats since 2008, and there's nothing like it. The best way to describe it is we can theoretically understand something,
Mm-hmm.
but when it's embodied, it has a completely different impact. And so when we have an emotional impact and we get to gather together, women to women, shoulder to shoulder, belly to belly, eye to eye, it's profound. I was interviewing one of my alumni just about her experience and what stuck, and it was fascinating. She had done my year-long program and talked about all the ways that it changed her life. And then she was talking about the retreat. And she said, in those 3 days, I think I made just as much transformation as I did in an entire year online program. Both of them changed her life, but the impact is very different. The other piece is what I'm seeing with women in particular, now that the pandemic is done. There's definitely some Zoom fatigue. There's adrenal exhaustion that's off the charts. There's thyroid conditions that are off the charts, and burnout is real. And I think more than ever, we need to remember to gather together in person and to create a safe container for women to be with women and share the things that we're personally going through. That doesn't mean that I want to exclude men all the time, but there is something, my first business was called Beyond the Red Tent. We think about this theoretical red tent where women used to gather,
Mm-hmm.
age together, bleed together, birth together. The online space is spectacular. I'm forever grateful for the access that I've had to work with clients from all over the world. And we come together with commonality that's not just geography. And I think we're kidding ourselves if we think that we can continue to do it all in the online space. And so then Josie has been a client of mine, and we've been having chats, and I had the esteemed privilege of supporting her. And then it was like, well, gosh, what if we co-created something that's specifically for women in corporate, specifically for women that are playing leadership roles? And wow, if they're in corporate and tech, now we're really talking, because we're bringing both of our expertise to go, how do we ensure that we're preventing burnout? We're remembering how to be seen and brainstorm and collaborate and build relationships with other women in the industry, but maybe not the same company, maybe not the same geography, and bring our expertise together to support women in person. Anything you want to add to that, Josie?
I mean, I think you covered a lot of it. I think for me, one of the things that also really excites me about the retreat is I live here in the Bay Area in California, and obviously this is the center of tech. So we could have planned the retreat here, but I was actually very intentional when I was talking to Mariah about planning this retreat and doing it in Ashland, because there's not that there aren't relaxing places in the Bay Area, but we do live in kind of this hustle and bustle culture around here. And there is something really magical and powerful about going somewhere like Ashland, where you can slow down, get out of the day to day, and really give yourself the opportunity to reconnect with yourself. So we were very intentional about like every single aspect of like designing the retreat.
Let's talk just a second about the tech culture today, about what that looks like. Now we've lived through, all of the women in tech, STEAM for women, and those young ladies that were like my children's age, right? 24, that had access to those and are now entering the tech space. This staggering statistic of, greater than 50% of them are leaving. Can you give us the top 3 reasons they're exiting tech? And then let's talk just a little bit, because there's probably some corporations that are listening to this, or HR people, or ERG groups, which we've been talking about, right? Where they want to keep women. Mm-hmm. It's just like we're business owners, right? The 3 of us here. It's less expensive to keep the customers that you have and keep working with them than to always do lead generation and look for new. So what are the top 3 reasons that they're leaving? And then what are the top 3 things that companies that are listening to this can do? And then how do you help them do that?
Yeah. So
to retain talent. Yes.
Yeah. So I think, the top reason is really feeling as unfair treatment, right? I think the number one reason is just not feeling included, not feeling heard. I call it the drops in the bucket that are the microaggressions, right? And eventually, like, one little thing isn't going to cause you to leave, but eventually all of those little drops, they add up and they overflow. I think in the current tech environment, we've been seeing massive layoffs in the last year and a half. Women and men, but everyone's being asked to do more with less. And so many people are just getting burnt out. Going back to like what Mariah was talking about, burnout. Like, burnout is so real right now. People are exhausted. They left the pandemic, maybe thrived a little bit, and then jumped straight into a period of uncertainty. And up until this point, since starting around like 2008, like the tech industry has always been in this like up and to the right trajectory, like growing and growing and growing. So for a lot of people, they might have never even seen the type of uncertainty that is going on right now in the tech industry. And then unfortunately, going back to the statistic, what's being an even bigger impact is, as I mentioned, the layoffs. And unfortunately, more women than men, from a percentage perspective, are being impacted. And because a lot of the layoffs start in more of the soft skills roles like HR and marketing, which tend to be actually where the higher percentage of women are. And so there's a number of different issues that are kind of going on right now. Under how do we retain women, right? I think this really goes back to looking at it from like that inclusion lens. I think so often companies try to check the diversity checkbox and they're like, let's focus on the hiring side, right? Let's get these people in the door. But one of the big pieces of work that I tend to do with corporations, like I ran DEI at Tile, like actually was the head of DEI at Tile. And the reason we were successful was we started with the inclusion piece. How do you make the day-to-day of somebody's experience, how are they feeling heard? How are they feeling supported? Are you looking at things like pay equity across gender and race and different, factors like disabilities, right? Are your core values not just something that are up on the wall that you look at once every 6 months to a year when you do performance? Or are you actually incorporating those into your ways of working? Are your meetings inclusive? We spend so much time in the corporate world in meetings, and yet that was one of the least inclusive things that tends to happen sometimes. And there's so many even small changes we can make in our day-to-day ways of working. And ultimately, are your leaders being held responsible for this? Like, are your leaders being held accountable? You know, we often see what I call is the brilliant jerk, right? The amazingly smart software engineer who can produce amazing code, but then they don't treat anybody else well, but they're still recognized. They're still being supported. And then the people that they're not treating fairly feel like, well, do we really even matter? So those are really some things that we can look at. And then finally, the last one is we need to tie this to our corporate goals, right? This can't just be, inclusion can't just be like a nice to have. And it actually helps from a business perspective. Corporations that have more high inclusion and high diversity are more likely to survive in a recession. They're actually more likely to be profitable. They're going to produce better products that fulfill the needs of more people. And so there is a business justification to focus on these things.
100%. And I want to be able to tie Mariah's gifts into.
Yeah, I know I'm like chomping at the bit. There's something I have to add.
Yeah, so let's talk about this, because Mariah and I have been talking about it as well. Like, women have needs, and burnout looks one way, and there's not medical in the companies, right? They can assume things. But Mariah, let's talk a little bit about your gifts and your abilities. When we're talking about, I don't feel included, you emotionally feel bad, right? And then you top on, oh my gosh, am I going to lose my job? Now I'm feeling, my gut is tight. I'm overproducing at work because I don't want to be that person that gets laid off. I'm going to show up even more than my counterpart because we're women. That's what we do, right? That has a huge impact on our health that's not being addressed in corporate. Right? It's production. It's at the end of the day, how are we going to show our shareholders or our VCs that we're actually producing? But let's pull you in for a second and talk about corporate wellness.
Totally.
And women specifically.
Yep.
In honor of Women's History Month. Like, I'm going to bring you over to the spotlight here.
Yeah, I think the overall concept is sharpen twice, cut once. And for corporations that want their women to show up with efficiency and presence in leadership, burnout is real. It's going to affect energy level. It's going to affect brain clarity. It's going to affect a woman's sleep for everyone, but particularly for women, and especially for women beyond the age of 35. And so when we can incorporate wellness and self-care, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's not something that comes naturally for most women. We are innately givers. We will serve and serve and serve, and then go on fumes from an empty cup, so to speak. And when I have the opportunity to support these female leaders, some of them are CEOs, some of them are in corporate, some of them support women in corporate, climbing the ladder, the more that we can fine tune our energy levels and prevent that burnout, we're that much more efficient at the work that we do. So there's preventing burnout. There's also empowering women to understand that we are very dynamic, ever-changing beings. And some men will say, oh, she's just being hormonal. Well, we do have different hormones, and they do shift pretty drastically. And that is part of our superhero power. And so when I can help women better understand this kind of cyclic nature, it is spectacular to see how much better they work in team environments, in leadership, and they can fine-tune their efficiency, because we do not function well if we're expected to fit into a 9 to 5, perform exactly the same each day. There is this undeniable kind of intuitive dynamic sense. And so when I have the opportunity to support women, it's really amazing to see how they rise, and they simply have a stronger ROI. So there's prevention of burnout. There's helping women to feel empowered in their dynamic cyclic nature. And then also, like Josie said, this is a very uncertain time. The economy is changing. Stress levels are over the top. And when we're feeling stressed and uncertain in our job, we've got, 75% or 35, whatever the percentages whatever the percentage is, we're looking outside for, am I going to have to find somewhere else to go if I get fired? And how do I navigate these uncertain times? And particularly for women, if I can help a woman find her internal true north, that eye in the midst of the storm, it is spectacular. It is spectacular for her confidence, for her team dynamics, for reduction of some of the cattiness that can sometimes happen. And so when a woman is given the opportunity and feels supported, particularly by an employer, to say, here, we're going to support you, go spend some time, get away, and focus not just on what you're going to do, but who you're going to be. And, it's so fascinating. Many women, it's almost like we need permission. One of my mottos is no permission needed, but we're given permission to go, oh, I'm actually going to give myself a break and go sharpen my sword, sharpen my saw, and find my sense of centering, my sense of my own true north. Now, stress reduction is a very viable expectation. Better sleep, more confidence, better working in a team dynamic, definitely better management of others, more efficiency, more ROI. Particularly now more than ever, because there is so much uncertainty. So for a woman to be able, for an individual, but we're speaking to women today, for you to be able to say, I'm going to set aside some time to go actually really focus on who I be and how I handle the storm. It's spectacular.
So and Josie, I'm going to bring you back in, but we're using some words that are a little hard to just like grab a hold of, right? Especially if we're talking about the tech industry. Like you're saying, I'm going to help you do this and find your true north. And so if a woman wants to advocate for herself, if a female leader of an ERG wants to advocate for wellness, let's talk just a second about, and Josie, you might be the best person to answer this. I'm not certain. What are they going to say? Like, oh, I met this beautiful woman named Mariah Brown, and she's going to help me find my true north. And I'm going to be like, yeah, well, you go sit in a teepee on your own dime because it's not happening on mine, right? So what, Josie, what do they need to hear in HR? What do they need to hear? What are the key words that our audience is going to want to use when they're advocating for bringing some of these programs internally? Because, on the spectrum of awareness, they're aware that something's off, right? They don't know what it is. They're aware. And so they can't look for a solution because they don't have the words to describe the problem. And there might not be a CFO that's ready to fund this. Let me go figure out what it is. So help me out here. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think focusing on it from some of the things that Mariah did touch on, right? Burnout, stress is real. We are having people leave the industry or leave their jobs, right? More women than ever are leaving their roles right now.
So what's a symptom of burnout that I can touch as an HR leader? Now, they probably already know it, but you're educating me too. What's something that I can touch, like employee was doing really well,
you're seeing performance, you're seeing performance decrease, or you're seeing them not engage as much. You're not seeing them show up to the table and present ideas. They're not as enthusiastic about getting things done. Maybe you're seeing more conflict actually between your team members because they don't have the energy to be empathetic, right now. You'll see this disengagement, right? Like disengagement can be a very clear sign of burnout. And it's really important, like if you see performance decreasing in an employee, to not just think that it's because they want to just check out. Like, I think we had this whole thing for a while about like, oh, people are just quiet quitting because they want to and things like that. And it's like, no, like this aspect where people really start disengaging from their work, like it can be very tied to people's mental health.
Yeah. I want to add too, brain fog. They simply can't remember, right? They're not as efficient or productive at the work that they're doing. Pronounced irritability, like you mentioned, group dynamics are being affected. Depression. If we all can see it in someone's face, there's this disengagement, there's the flat affect, and then it shows up as they're not sleeping. And then often they end up going to drugs, alcohol. So now they're drinking more, maybe they're not showing up on time, they're seeming disheveled, they're not presenting in the way that they used to. All of those symptoms are a byproduct of burnout.
An HR director can't say, though, you need to go see a doctor, right? They can't say that.
No.
So as a supervisor who sees these things, right, I know, right? Because they're like, oh, yeah, I drank a little bit too much wine last night. Give me a sec. Like, let me go have another cup of coffee. Document, not documenting to harass, documenting to, oh, is that there's other things happening, right? How does the manager or somebody approach to bring you guys in? That's I'm just trying to get to that, because we see the symptoms, the manager's recognizing them. Mariah, what are you going to do for that person that shows up to you? What's that intake going to look like? And then how would a supervisor be able to suggest you? I don't know, just you'll have to help us with that. HR, that really fine line of, I have some support, or is it a wellness program where they are allowed for employee health to just call? Tell me about that.
I mean, yes, all of it. Definitely, there's the potential of bringing someone like me or Josie in to do, online health programs to help empower these individuals to have better stress management, better self-care, fine-tune their nutrition, even getting some better functional tests to look at what is going on cellularly. I imagine, and Josie, you'd probably be better at this from an HR perspective, to be able to say, we're going to send 3 of our female leaders to go together to a retreat like this. You're going to go and get a personalized plan with specific actionable steps that will help you ensure that burnout is prevented. Give you a moment, a disruption in the daily grind to go rejuvenate a little bit, to find your sense of, I use the word groundedness. I know that that's not a corporate word, but it's relevant for us to have our sense of groundedness when there's uncertain times. And then a lot of this retreat in particular is focused on fine-tuning our leadership skills. Josie, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I think, specifically with this retreat, right? I think the power is the combined power of myself and Mariah, right? Because we're looking at burnout, and that's an important aspect, but we're also looking at, how are you showing up? How do you elevate your leadership presence so that you're heard? You can assert yourself. So often the women I work with end up just sitting back and being like, I'm doing all of this hard work, but I see my male colleagues being promoted and I'm not. And, one of the things that was shocking to me as I was, I managed teams for 13 years. And I can count on one hand how many women ever came to me during that time and asked for a promotion and raise. And it is countless the number of men who did so at the same time.
And how much do you want to bet that affected the attrition rate specifically or of the women?
Yeah.
So if they're not given support to find their voice and self-advocacy, to speak up when they're struggling at home, or they're exhausted, or they're not happy in their current role, but they're not asking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now what leader wants to have to deal with higher attrition rate of the females in their organization? And we all know the cost of hiring and training someone new. So it's also, I mean, it's around culture internally. It's also around maintaining the employees that you've dedicated time and energy and money to train and lead.
Yeah.
And I think if corporations are getting a bad rap only because the support isn't there, so women are exiting to look for support, and they're starting their own businesses, but because they can control that support. But if the wellness programs and the support and the supervisor role and the Josies of the world that can, teach a woman how to ask for the raise, ask for the promotion, if those things are in place, then there's a reason to stay. That's the accrual rate. That's the retention rate that we're looking for. And so, ladies, you need to advocate for, or bring the DEI statistics up of, we have 50 supervisors and 2 are women. And guess what? 2 are women of color, and you just put them there so you could check off the box, right? They're not even, they might be at the table, but their voice is not even heard. They don't feel included. You gave them a seat, but you did it as a DEI checkoff point, not to really include them. So then they're pissed off, and then they leave, and then nobody else wants that seat because it's wasted anyway. And why would I want all that stress and burnout when I could just stay in this little role because I want to have a baby soon, and I don't want to have the pressure because I know they're not going to support me.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to acknowledge is bias is real, right? Like, it is not all on the women, right? Like I always say, like, imposter syndrome is something that society needs to fix. Not like we should not be fixing, like, this is not a problem for women to fix. And so therefore, like, generic leadership training also doesn't always work, because as women, we face this like double bind between being assertive and being called aggressive, right? And the more assertive we are, the less we end up being liked. And that is a very fine balance that we need to navigate as we are advocating for ourselves. So it is crucial to have folks who know how to advocate in a way that will help you.
Another thing that I think we haven't touched on that's relevant in the midst of this conversation is, in some cultures and society, there can be some competitiveness or cattiness between women and amongst women.
Not some, let's just call it out that it's there. I mean, thank goodness I've reached a point in my elderly age that I see it, but I don't want to take part in it. But it's prominent. It's just a climb to the top. All those words, that the cliches, are there for a reason, because that's what you had to do.
And it's competitiveness. It's women who have lost trust in depending on other women. And so for me, I have a personal mission of bringing women together in a safe, vulnerable environment, and kind of healing those wounds, and bringing women together to be reminded that we can do this, and we can be supportive, and we can really share what's actually going on and feel heard and seen. And in a retreat like this, if there's women coming from multiple corporations, multiple industries, they're left with a safety net, so to speak, of others to be able to depend on and reach out to and talk to. And they're left with a sense of safety that, this is I tend to be a little bit more woo-woo, but heals these wounds that then does go a long way in company culture and
Women need
preventing some of the
mentors.
competition. Say
You're
that again?
providing mentors. You're providing a container where
Yep.
women can find their place and find someone that can help mentor them or help accountability partner them to reach their goals. And you guys are providing another container where you're going to share this experience, like we did recently, right? You can share an experience that elevates a different type of relationship.
Yep.
than
Right.
social media where we're hiding behind our screens and just making.
Yeah, so it becomes a personal journey, but it also becomes a collaborative experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to we've been online for a long time. As we start to wrap it up, what are you focusing on, Mariah? We're also going to wrap the quarter pretty soon. We're February. We've got 1 month left to reach our goals, everyone. What's been your goal this quarter? Is it this retreat? What are you working on? What are some things that what's your ask to the universe? Because you have access to them right now. What are you working on?
That's a loaded question.
One singular focus.
Yeah, I think the singular focus in the context of this conversation is for the women that are listening. If you're in corporate and you're in tech, you're feeling the brink of burnout. You know that you would be fed by taking a break and being surrounded by other women in corporate and coming to a 3-day retreat in beautiful Southern Oregon. Please reach out to me or Josie. If you are someone who is in leadership with a corporation and maybe you have the power or decision-making potential to send a few of your leaders, please reach out to us. There is kind of like some group rate pricing that we can work on.
Josie, can you drop the link to the landing page? I don't have it queued up at this very second. It's in the event, you guys know that if you're watching the event had the link, but let's just live drop the link.
Into the private chat. I don't seem to have access to directly respond though.
Okay,
perfect.
Great. Yeah, and well, I'll just leave it at that. But that's probably the place to start right now. And even I think I'll drop the potential is if you're listening to this and you run a corporation where you're going, wow, there is space to incorporate aspects of wellness training and support and leadership training and support. I think Josie and I, hopefully it's okay that I'm speaking on your behalf, Josie, but I think both of us are very.
I'm hot seeing her on that too. Yeah,
we are open to coming in and offering support to all employees to be able to help maximize efficiency and ROI and prevent burnout, so that you can maintain a happy culture and lower your attrition rate. I think it's very relevant and very real. So just reach out our way. Both of us are very approachable. I tend to be more in Instagram and Facebook, but you'll just fill out the form on the site.
Yeah.
And we can have conversations and answer any of your questions.
And so, Josie, before I ask you about your singular focus for like the next, I have seen, because I work a lot with my clients in ERGs, they don't have a big budget. They're given maybe, what's an average budget of an ERG to be able to support their employees at that level? Have you seen a number that's come out?
It's only really the really big companies that I've seen have decent sized budgets. I know a lot of ERGs hardly have a budget, or maybe they have $1,000 or $2,000 and that's it. We could have a whole conversation about how we should actually be paying our ERG leaders, making sure that that's part of their performance reviews, and under the how do you support the folks that do that sort of work, whether it's women or other folks who are doing it. That is a whole other conversation.
I'm putting that down because we will have that conversation for sure. Right? Because we keep saying, what's the point if you can't actually do something as a community within your company, right? What's the point?
Yeah, and the other thing is they're not setting up these ERG leaders for success. because if you give somebody all of the responsibility for doing all of the changes, but you don't give them access to a sponsor at the executive level who will actually help them implement the changes, you are setting them up to fail. And ERG leaders are constantly burning out and leaving because they're not set up to succeed.
Yeah. All right, now let's go to you. What is your singular focus for the next quarter or the next couple of months where, people that are watching this can help support you or drop your name somewhere, or what can we do as a community to help you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the big focus has been this retreat, right? And, trying to get women to come. I think this is such a powerful experience. That's why, Mariah and I created this. And we want to be able to support as many women as possible while keeping it an intimate, small space where people feel safe. Right? Like they can speak up. They are going to get a lot of, personalized attention from Mariah and myself. I also do coaching, right? That's the primary side of my business. So I'm always, if people are looking for executive coaching or leadership coaching for women in tech, I'm always happy to support. And I also help corporations fix issues like what we were just talking about. Like, how do you actually create ERGs that are effective? How do you build inclusive cultures and environments?
Yeah, and those are some future conversations that we're going to have, that I see the vision of this new show that I'm launching that I wasn't prepared to talk about today. But, the name is Sisters of Influence. And just that name is, how can we be sisters to each other in a positive sense, right? How can we help and use our influence, use our mentorship, our abilities, our experience to be able to help women move forward in either their personal lives with their health, or in their professional life in tech, or in, if they're leaving and they're going into entrepreneurship, how can we help them set themselves up for success? Because we've paved that path, we've been there already. So how can we help them through sisterhood? So that's my goal, is to be able to continue to support women and women of color. And just we're here in sisterhood to help you, right? It's our businesses though too, but there are some mentorship opportunities. All right, so we have the link, you guys, in the show as we wrap it up. Mariah, tell us a little bit about Ashland. Where's it set? Is that a hotel?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to.
What's it going to look like?
Yeah, Ashland is a beautiful town nestled in a valley surrounded by mountains. It's known for the home of the National Shakespeare Festival. It's wine country. There's a university. The retreat is right downtown, so you would fly into Medford, Oregon. And then we have a retreat coordinator that will give you the hand-holding and kind of concierge support to help you find the perfect lodging option for you. Of course, we have a discounted rate for hotel options. We have a whole resource guide for local restaurants and shopping, and maybe you want to go to the spa or go see a play, do something with your morning and evenings will be free. And then we'll gather from 10 to 5 each day for the retreat itself. Of course, spectacular food and lots of fresh air, and, not a city vibe. This is a place where our nervous system gets to unwind, and you'll likely get great sleep and go back rejuvenated and ready to pour into your work as a filled up version with a whole lot more clarity and a skill set to show up as an even stronger leader, and be clear with where you want your career progression to go, and the ability to actively articulate that and climb.
That's great. All right. Yeah. Any last thoughts, Josie, before we wrap? And
just to add on to the audience,
you guys, let us know.
Just to add on to the Ashland thing, right? It's a short flight from the Bay Area. It's like an hour flight from SFO to Medford. There's a direct flight there, and it's a 5.5 hour drive, so it's drivable as well. So I know it's not like right here in the Bay Area, but it's also very accessible. And so, yeah, and it is a great place. Like I said earlier, like we really wanted it to be intentionally somewhere where we could have people unwind.
What is the price, you guys? Let's just what is the price to attend so that they don't have to?
Yeah, so the investment's $2,000 for the weekend.
Okay.
And it includes the 3 days and some amazing lunches and snacks throughout the day so that you feel supported.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 3
Totally.
days. Mm-hmm.
Totally $2,000, right?
Yep.
If your corporation will invest in you, $2,000 will invest in you, and you will feel fueled up and ready to take on challenges until you don't again. And then you need to refuel. This isn't a one and done thing, right? I mean, Mariah and I went to this really amazing breakthrough mastermind. And what were the dates of that? It was beginning of February or January?
It feels like a long time ago. I don't know.
I'm already thinking we need to go to another one. Like you come out of something like this, right, on a high, and you're going to implement it, and then life gets in the way, and then it starts to slowly come off. So that's why having a coach like a Mariah or like a Josie can help you stay on that path, because life can take over, and it's a muscle that you exercise. You're giving them new tools. Well, just because I have tools in my toolbox doesn't mean I remember to reach them.
Well, and also I just want to say, yes, like I would applaud a corporation that is ready and willing to invest in their leadership and the women to go fill up and prevent burnout and have clarity and fine tune their leadership skills and have the break. I imagine they would feel really cared for and honored to be given that opportunity, but also to the women that are listening to this and you're going, oh my gosh, I need that. I know I'm on the brink of burnout. The idea of having a pause, surrounding myself with other female leaders, getting clarity in my vision and who I want to be. We also get to invest in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the difference between the sick care system and the healthcare system, right? We can potentially invest now, or we pay much more significantly down the road. And I can tell you that if you know that you're banking on burnout, it's one of those things that we can't delay, because on the other side can be quite tragic. And as a healthcare provider, it's sad to see. But what I want to just really say to all of you that are watching, if this feels like something that maybe feels confronting, maybe your palms sweat a little bit and you're like, I don't even know, I've never done anything like this. Listen to that little nudge. And there's a lot of power in making the commitment to yourself and stepping away and investing in yourself a bit to go and refuel. And you'll leave with a lot of clarity, a very personalized plan. And it's really the type of thing, at least all the retreats I've done in the past, every woman says those 3 days changed the trajectory of the rest of my life. I'm a different human being. I've had women say it saved my life. It saved my marriage. It saved my career.
Those are pretty profound.
Those are profound ahas. Yeah.
I was going to try to get off before my son got home. All right, you guys. So I'm going to wrap the show. We have these are streaming on all your favorite platforms. You can re-watch it. It's here. Reach out to us. If you can't find Josie or you can't find Mariah, reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with them. If you have subjects that you want to talk about for the Sisters of Influence, or any subjects that are near and dear to you that I can bring subject matter experts on, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can find me on all the socials as well. So if you two would stay on, I'm going to end the stream. Thank you so much for being here, both of you.